Welcome back to Three and Out. I'm Stucky. Joining me, as always, is Colin Wilson. This is the portion of our Big Bets on Campus podcast that we record live. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for coming to our new BBOC channel. Make sure you hit that subscribe and like button. As we do each and every Thursday night, we will go 3 and out. We'll have 3 downs and go for it on 4th down with our favorite bet. We'll cover our favorite underdog money line parlay. I've hit 2 in a row, going for 3 straight. Our favorite overdog, aka favorite favorites. And we'll kick things off in just a moment with some Friday night lights. Colin, let's dive right in to some Friday night lights. Let's start in the ACC. Florida State will travel to Duke, catching right around a field goal here. I haven't taken the plunge yet with Florida State. I know you tried to earlier this season. I won't mention, I guess I'm mentioning it now, your college football playoff graphic with Florida State in your field. Sorry for dropping that in. I haven't taken the plunge yet with Florida State. I think this is the chance. This is the time to do that. Look, Duke has not beaten anybody. I mean, their schedule has been laughable. They finally stepped up, lost by double digits to Georgia Tech in their previous game. Before that, I mean, this is a team that had come back from down 20-0 against North Carolina. They should have lost to Northwestern. Sorry, I mean, that's another. Add that to the list of your cursed weekday bets with Northwestern and Duke. And Florida State, look, they're coming off the bye. I still respect Norvell from a game planning perspective. And they're going, if you look at their depth, their projected depth chart this week on offense, they're going with like a little bit more of a youth movement. So I think they could come out of the bye week with a little more juice here. DJU obviously no longer under center. I think that's ultimately a positive. They still have a really talented defense. I don't trust Malik Murphy to consistently beat this Seminoles defense. So you just change a couple results for Duke. Like they lose that Northwestern game as they should have. North Carolina doesn't melt down. I don't think that Florida State is catching a field goal plus here. I like the Noles. Are you going to join me?
I was going to have you try to convince me here. I mean, listen, Duke is 5-1 with a strength of schedule rank of 100. It's not like Manny Diaz has really been tested yet here, and a lot of coin flips has gone his way. Florida State, I mean, I projected this game at 3, so I understand the move off of 4 down to 3. Florida State's coming off of a bye week. Brock Glenn is now like the master of festivities for Tallahassee whenever the season like gets thrown in the garbage now 2 years in a row. But there just wasn't a lot of positives against Clemson, and that kind of worries me. 3.9 yards overall, yards per play, no explosive drives. Lawrence Toafili, 1.6 yards per carry. I didn't see any kind of spark against Clemson that I would want in a box score to get in heavy on this. And I still like Duke's offensive line from a pass blocking perspective. Right tackle Brian Parker, the second, is the best right tackle in the nation. He has allowed 2 pressures and 233 pass blocking snaps. So that kind of takes away a little bit of the bite that Florida State might have trying to create some havoc. And Malik Murphy he hasn't faced anybody yet. A 12-7 big time throw to turnover worthy play. So you can really shoot holes through Duke on the fact that they haven't really been challenged yet. I like the youth movement that maybe Norvell has seen the signs that it's time to go ahead and get started on 2025. Florida State's biggest advantage here is explosives in the air during passing downs. Duke is 18th in coverage, and they have heavy success in cover 1 and cover 3. Those are things that have given Florida State issues. So I like the under in this game stock. I was going to hope you could convince me to Florida State, but you just really kind of betting on the youth movement, just being more fresh than DJ and the crew that was there before for Florida State. So I think I'm going to stick with the under.
Man, I mean, you're just throwing me under the bus here, saying I didn't make a great
You have to
case.
convince me.
I apologize for that. So you're rolling with the under. I'm rolling with the Noles. I'm ready for the pain. Let's move on to Oregon in a very tricky spot, just situationally. I had this one circled. It's like, all right, if they beat Ohio State before the season started, if they beat Ohio State going to Purdue, the spoiler makers at home. This is tricky travel spot, short week, off of that emotional game. They're laying 4 touchdowns here. I I just couldn't get here numbers wise. I mean, the spot tells me Purdue. We saw some life. Thought there might be some quit watch. They showed life. Arguably should have beat Illinois last week. I but how are they getting stops? I don't know. Oregon and Dylan Gabriel throws some red zone picks. Maybe is what you're hoping for. I don't know how they get any stops in this game above 4 touchdowns. Lean to Purdue. Below, no, thank you. But this ultimately just might be a stay away for me. You told me before the season, Ohio State, Oregon beats Ohio State. I would have told you 90% chance I'm on Purdue. I don't think I can get there. Maybe you can convince me if you do like Purdue. What do you see here?
There's a side that I want, and I'm like, am I going to do it? Do I have the balls to put money down on this? And so it's going to be Purdue in the first half, spot related, of course, because if you go back and you look, these Pac-12 members that have had to travel east, it's been a severe struggle bus. USC has just looked awful against Michigan and Minnesota losses. UCLA lost 27-11 at Penn State. Washington was blown out at Iowa after beating Michigan at home. And the Huskies lost at Rutgers in week 5. Like, this whole travel between 2 time zones is a real thing. So is Oregon going to be a part of that? And if they are, after this huge win against Ohio State, wouldn't you kind of want to take Purdue in the first half? A number. I mean, we're all talking about this steaming up the board. I see 29.5 as you and I are talking. It's way out of range. I have Purdue at about 1 plus 26 in this. So this number is way out of territory. The first half number last I looked was 17. It might be up higher than that right now with the steam going on. So the question is, can you back a Purdue team that went 10 quarters without scoring a touchdown before they got into the second half against Illinois last week, went berserk and shoved the game into overtime? Ryan Brown was the quarterback that was responsible for that last week in the second
They'll
half.
start again.
Yeah, he'll start 3 touchdowns. He just had 1 turnover-worthy play. He had 11.2 average depth of target, so he was just out there chucking bombs. But I don't think he's going to be as fortunate here, because when you go inside of his numbers, and this is what's kind of got me tailing off of Purdue, he had 13 pressures and 26 passing attempts. That resulted in just 1 sack. I mean, he was just sort of a magician dancing around all the pressures that he got and all of his passing attempts last week. 3.7 seconds for release time. Like, the average is 2.5. He held onto the ball forever, and somehow Illinois didn't get any hands on him and only sacked him once. And the key to getting explosive on Oregon is the rushing attack. Brown had over 100 yards on the ground last week, so he had 85 of those off of design calls for Purdue. So if there's going to be any kind of, push against Oregon here in this number, it's got to come from Brown on the ground. Oregon has struggled against zone read this year. We've talked about that in the past. Inside zone, 44% success rate for the Ducks. That is the path. Ryan Brown on the ground. I don't know how he throws 3.7 seconds before release time and gets away with it against Oregon. I don't think it's possible against that defensive line. But Purdue in the first half is the spot play. I think I'm just going to let this thing steam out till about Friday, 1 hour before kick, and maybe look at a first half line.
All right, let's move on to a game with college football playoff implications. And for the team that many would have guessed that does not apply for before the season started. Talking about Oklahoma State at undefeated BYU. BYU, one of 2 teams, I believe, that's undefeated against the spread this season, along with Army. I played Oklahoma State. I had just a pure numbers play. Look, BYU has been one of the luckiest teams in the country. They've been way better than expected. But I mean, every week they get outgained. They will get pick sixes, punt return touchdowns, and completely misleading final scores. Seemingly every single week. This team still has issues on offense. And Oklahoma State, are they on quit watch? I don't know. We talked about this earlier in the week on the new BCS. McMurphy thinks they're going to respond off the bye week to Gundy. We've seen Gundy's teams look lifeless and then respond in the second half seasons before. Quarterback change here. There's a lot of uncertainty in this. Looks like Garrett Rangel will get the start over Alan Bowman. And then you also could see, which I'm actually, someone who bet Oklahoma State, I'm actually more excited to see potentially the freshman Flores come in, who has been getting some run with the ones reportedly. So you could see him at some point. makes it a little more difficult for BYU from a preparation standpoint. So, I mean, look, the BYU rushing attack has not been great. That's where you could really get this Oklahoma State defense that just is not good in that area and has also suffered injuries. So I think just pure numbers play, I can't get here. Liked it a bit more at 10, but would still play it. Where it sits currently, I'm with the Pokes. It's a team I was fading, but look, sometimes you just have to take a number. I'm rolling with Oklahoma State here off the bye to respond. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do agree. I've played this myself today. Numbers play just like you. I make it BYU -5.5. So at 9.5, anything above 7, you're going to have to take interest in Oklahoma State here. And you really have to take interest for two other data points. Gundy is 11-4 against the spread off of a bye since 2017. I'm not so much of a trends player, but I am oh, thank God Alan Bowman is not the starting quarterback anymore. I think with Zane Flores, you have to go deep into his recruiting profile. He was a 3-star. His recruiting profile says that he has a polished arm. He works great in quick decisions and slants and out routes. He doesn't have any elite indicators as far as arm strength and his size, but he has mobility to have some sort of scramble game. I think the important key thing there is that he's able to hit slants and out routes quickly, make quick decisions, because Alan Bowman can't. Alan Bowman's always been a hot read and he can't get to his second and third progressions. This could be an upgrade for the Oklahoma State offense. I think that's what you're playing for. Plus, Oklahoma State likes to go really fast, 22 seconds per play. They need a quarterback that can help get them quick first downs and get down the field, and they just haven't had that yet. The offensive line, this average age of 26 years old, they finally have shown up in pass blocking. Right now, they're fourth nationally per PFF and pass blocking. So if Zane Flores comes in, we should be able to see him back there and hit a couple of targets against this BYU defense. On the other side, Jake Retzlaff, what are we talking about here? 7-7 turnover worthy play to big time throw ratio. He just crumbles in a pressured pocket. If you can get any kind of press in that pocket, Retzlaff has been pretty terrible. The problem with Oklahoma State is they generated only 2 sacks against West Virginia. They're just struggling to get pressure, and that hasn't really worked out there. But you're right. It's been a bye week. Gundy always gets his team to turn around. You see that in the against the spread, and I am way more comfortable with Zane Flores. Now, you and I have known, we've talked about this with Brett. Zane Flores has been getting snaps for quite a while. I would not be shocked if he has been preparing for the BYU game itself for a month, and Gundy's had that in the back of his mind the entire time. I'd be surprised to see Wrangle come out, do one possession, get the BYU defense a little off, and then Zane Flores comes out and does his thing. So I'm with you on Oklahoma State.
All right, riding with the Pokes. Let's add it. Yeah, let's add it. I couldn't convince you on Florida State.
Nope.
We are adding. I understand your trauma there. I might have some trauma after Friday night as well.
The whole graphic that says Florida State makes a college football playoff. It's burned in my memory until the end of the year.
Adding Oak State to the agree portion of our transparency whiteboard. Final game Friday night. Super late night, 15 minutes after BYU, Oklahoma State. Fresno State, Nevada. I got nothing here. I think Nevada was a team significantly improved, primarily due to just a massive coaching upgrade. And last year, you could argue they had one of the worst coaching staffs in the country. And this year, you could argue that they improved more than any team in the country from that perspective. They had value early on because of that, but I think the market finally is settling in to where Nevada should be priced. Fresno State, 3-point road favorite here. So this is a pass for me. You got anything?
Yeah, I'm on Nevada here all the way. I think 3 is probably the last number you're going to buy. It's not really a big power ratings play. I make this game about Fresno by 2. So it's not really so much that. It's the fact that the best part of the Fresno State offense is the passing game of Mikey Keene. The splits really haven't been great, from a touchdown interception to a big time throw to turnover worthy play. But the best part of the Nevada defense is the secondary and the coverage unit. It started in game 1 against SMU. Right now they're 36th in grading per PFF. But Keene, he's been sort of middle FBS in success rate against quarters and cover 1. Nevada runs both of those schemes on the back end. That should confuse Keene a little bit. Same strength of schedule for both of these teams here coming out of the Mountain West, but there's a big rush advantage on the ground for the Nevada offense. Both quarterback Brendan Lewis, running back Savion Red. They are decent, 3.4 yards after first contact, but each have created 27 missed tackles. You have to be on your tackle game against this Nevada ground attack. But overall, that secondary for the Wolfpack has been crazy good all year and surprising out of the Mountain West. And we're going to back it here at home.
All right, it's time to move on to second down and talk our favorite overdogs, aka our favorite favorites. I'll kick things off. I'm going with my Kentucky Wildcats on the road at Florida. I think, look, Stoops, last week we saw them, very disappointing effort. I talked about that last week. They've always been so poor out of the bye. I don't know what it is, but his teams consistently come out with poor efforts after time off. They usually do respond, though, from poor efforts and after losses. Already seen that this year, right? Get embarrassed by South Carolina, almost come back and beat Georgia the following week. And then, they upset Ole Miss. So I expect them to respond here. More importantly, I like the matchup. Kentucky, their offense is efficient when they're running the ball, struggle throwing it. Well, you can run on Florida. It was really struggled to defend opposing ground attacks. And when Florida has the ball, all right, they're not gonna be able to run it. You can't run it on Kentucky. They have one of the best front sevens in all of college football. You have to efficiently pass it against this secondary. I don't trust DJ Lagway to do that. He's probably going to make a few key mistakes. Like Kentucky's going to drop a lot in the coverage. They'll still be able to get pressure as well. And eventually, I think Lagway is going to make a couple of mistakes. If you just remove his numbers against Samford, yeah, I mean, they are not pretty. I don't think he's quite ready yet for SEC level football. I think he has 2 touchdowns and 4 interceptions outside of the Samford game. And this will be the best defense he has faced to date in his first SEC start. Give me Kentucky and give me the better staff with Stoops and company against your boy, Billy Napier. I think Stoops 2-0 against the spread the past 2 years, covering about 17 points per game against Florida. I think it continues. Not sure where Florida's at mentally. Another loss. Heartbreaking fashion. Should have beat Tennessee. I like the Cats on the road. Any thoughts there? And then where are you going for your favorite overdog?
Florida. First off, I couldn't believe Florida opened up as a favorite here. That number moved before I could get a piece of it. I agree with you. If you even want to put it on the board, Kentucky money line, I'm all the way there. They will be in my round robins. Florida, they better be in desperation mode for this game because the schedule after this is the most brutal thing in all of college football. So good luck to the Gators here. I'm going to move on. My overdog this week is going to be Washington State taking on my beloved Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. Listen, Wazoo has just been a completely different animal at home on offense. 70 points against Portland State, 37 against Texas Tech, and 54 against San Jose. I know you hear those teams and you think, well, they don't have very good defenses, but Wazoo is scoring at will at home, no matter who the opponent is. The Cougars right now are second in rush EPA. They're 20th in pass EPA. This is not a methodical offense. This is not an offense that's based on getting first downs. They just love to have quarterback John Mateer just completely blow up the field and try to get scores from that. He leads the team in rushing yards. He is everything to this team. 6 rushing touchdowns already this year for their quarterback. You can think of Hawaii trying to defend John Mateer there for Washington State, similar to what they saw with Hunter Watson from Sam Houston earlier this season. That's really the only true RPO threat that a quarterback that they've had to go up against. Watson was 12 rushes, 41 yards. He had a decent day against Hawaii defense. Hawaii's defense, they're just mid FBS against outside zone, something Washington State runs a lot. They struggle more with inside zone and a heavier box. Wazoo's going to mix in a lot of that too. That's all in their run concepts. The Hawaii run and shoot is broken. I know that they were missing some key targets and receivers coming into this season, but I never imagined they would be 131st in creating explosives through the air. That is not a Timmy Chang run and shoot offense that Hawaii is running right now. There's no single target on this team that is getting more.
No Shager bombs.
No Shager bombs, and no wide receiver is over 2 yards per route run. I'm shocked. You could have told me that in preseason. I would have never believed you. The other thing I don't believe, Hofel Ashlock, who's their best wide receiver by far, has more drops than anybody else in the nation. I don't know what's going on there with his hands. He's only caught 2 of 7 contested catches, 7 contested throws from Shager this year. Ashlock is just not coming down with the ball, and he can't hold on to it, leading the nation in drops. Shager has accuracy concerns. Hawaii's already had 32 contested throws so far this year. Something's wrong with the passing game. It's not working, and Wazoo is 25th in pass coverage per PFF. So let's look at the Cougs here to absolutely roll with this high spread.
Yeah, they really miss Stephen McBride. He's
Yep.
just really missing from this offense. Why I think you're going with Washington State, though. This caller on the voicemail last week said, Colin, stop fading my Cougs.
Yep.
Well, you listened. You're rolling with the Cougs. All right, so favorites, Kentucky and Washington State. Let's move on to third down. Our favorite moneyline underdogs for our underdog moneyline parlay have hit 2 in a row. Going for a show record, 3 straight. You were just talking about John Mateer. I'm going to talk how about a little John Denver. Country roads take. You don't want to hear me sing. I'm going with West Virginia. They burned me last week, but I think this is actually a better matchup. Was concerned about Iowa State's passing attack and explosives against this West Virginia secondary. That's their clear weakness. Do I really trust Kansas State's passing attack now? No, not really. So I'll make Avery Johnson and company prove to me, because the West Virginia run defense is solid. I mean, what did Iowa State average? Like under 3 yards per carry last week. I'll make Avery Johnson prove to me, go on the road here, get it done in a hostile environment through the air. Give me the Mountaineers here. Where are you going?
Agree if you want to put that on the board. I'm going to stay in the Pac-2 after taking Washington State. I'm going to go with Oregon State, and what could be the spot of the weekend, taking on UNLV is going to come up to Corvallis. They just got done routing Utah State. They're 2-0 in the Mountain West. They're going to go up to Corvallis, and what's coming on deck? A short week Friday night bonanza extravaganza against Boise State next week, the G5 showcase of the year. So why would you care about going to Corvallis, an out-of-conference game that doesn't mean anything except maybe the fact that you might not make the college football playoff if you lose this game? Interesting to note that Beavers defensive coordinator Keith Hayward, very familiar with Las Vegas. He was on the Raiders staff last year, but before that, he was the defensive coordinator at UNLV before Barry Odom took over. There is a lot of overlap with the go-go offense of Brennan Marion, who arrived after he departed too. But remember, he stayed in Las Vegas and he's close to the program and probably knows how to defend this offense. Injuries have been a really large concern for this Oregon State defense. You can't really look in their analytics and say this is going to be a great play. Oregon State has been torn up on the ground here across the board. So we need their defense to step up here at home. We need a little Corvallis magic. And the best option against UNLV is the Oregon State rushing offense. And this is exactly what Vanderbilt does. This is what service academies do. We're going to choke you out on the ground. You're not going to get any possessions for that go-go offense. And we're going to run the ball and get about 100 first downs here. If you look at that rushing offense, it's about a 63% rate. They are top 10 in rushing success rate. They are top 10 also in quality drives. Oregon State does get themselves in scoring position often. Anthony Hakerson's up to 12 TDs this season. Both he and Jamius Griffin, they've combined for 31 rushing attempts that have gone for at least 10 yards. So they do have explosive runs that move the chains. Man, outside, inside zone, all of those run concepts are in there. Those are things that UNLV have had problems with this year. They've been torched by inside zone. So, and Havoc allowed advantages for the Beavers here. UNLV is not going to be able to get in past that offensive line and play around in the backfield and get tackles for loss against this Oregon State offensive line. So I like Oregon State. They need to own the time of possession, which they should here. They ought to own first downs, which they should here. And that ground game will get them into scoring position and keep that UNLV go-go off the field.
I agree. We both played against the spread. Didn't add West Virginia because I haven't played them against the spread yet, but added Oregon State here. Just a numbers play. I hate this Oregon State team, but think the hate has gone too far. The run defense is atrocious, which worries me. But yeah, tough spot for UNLV. I think valuable number. And by the way, I mean, UNLV's defense has to be gassed. What have they been on the field? 2 straight games, 90+ plays.
Yeah.
Last week in elevation, here's a little nugget for you. There's 9 FBS stadiums that are 4,000+ feet in altitude. Teams that play a road game in one of those 9 and then play a road game the next week, 91-20-5 against the spread since 2005. As road favorites, 28-50-1, 36%, 16-39-1, 29% against the spread when favored by more than 4 points. So you could see some fatigue here for sure on the defensive end against a team that wants to just lean on you with that big offensive line. All right, let's move on to we're going to go for it. Fourth down, our favorite bet of the weekend. Oh, I think mine last week was mine Iowa? I think it might have been. Or was that my favorite? I don't know. But this week, I'm fading Iowa. I'm going with Michigan State. This is a really good spot. Iowa they blew out Washington. Bit of a misleading final. It was a spectacular situational spot. But now I think you're getting Michigan State in a great situational spot. This is a team off of games against Ohio State and Oregon. Now you get, 15 days off before this game against Iowa. I think that means a lot, especially early in the season with a team that has had so much turnover and has a new staff and a staff that I highly respect from a matchup perspective. Number one, this Iowa defense is not the same elite unit as it has been, specifically along their defensive line. They want to run the ball, lean on Caleb Johnson. Michigan State's defensive strength is their run D. So I think they match up pretty well here. Jonathan Smith, coach I highly respect. I think we'll have Michigan State ready here with extra time to prepare. 8 or more days. Got 15 here, by the way. 10-2 against the spread. 8-1 as an underdog, covering by about a field goal per game. Give me Sparty. Where you going?
Yeah, Michigan State off that bye. We got to trust in Jonathan Smith here. I'm going to go up to Storrs, Connecticut, where Wake Forest is going to travel up to play UConn, who is coming off of a bye here. We're going to back the Huskies. Wake has lost 2 one-possession games. I'm not sure if they really have the makeup to keep it close and win some of these one-possession games. That's 2 that they've lost already this year. And frankly, they were box score frauds in that one road trip they've had this season against NC State. There was an early NC State fumble in that game that created a 2-play, 2-yard drive for Wake Forest to get the score that was needed to win that. So there's a lot of fraudulence going on in the Wake Forest box scores. Not a believer of what they've done so far. UConn's been great at home. They've won 5 straight. They're coming off a bye week. Offense has been in cruise control at home. They've scored at least 47 points in 3 of 4 games at home this season. The Deacons are in a non-con sandwich right here. They just got destroyed on the ground by Clemson. They got Stanford next week before they finally get to their bye. I imagine they're more worried about their ACC schedule than they are traveling up to Connecticut. And UConn right now is top 20 in defensive passing success rate. That's going to be needed facing Hank Bachmeier. And Wake is 133rd in defensive stuff rate. Are they even trying to play defense in the A and B gaps on short yardage situations? That's not going to be good against the UConn trio of Darrell Robinson, Cameron Edwards, and Mel Brown. That trio has created 45 missed tackles, each of them averaging between 3.4 to 4.2 yards after first contact. This ground game for UConn is for real. Wake Forest can't defend it, and I don't think Wake Forest cares about this game. So give me UConn here in our 4th down attempt.
Yeah, I have no feel here. It is a good spot. Wake's also dealt with a ton of injuries, but I'll be on the sidelines here rooting you on. That'll do it for 3 and Out. Thanks for tuning in. Again, make sure you hit that subscribe and like button on our YouTube channel. Full podcast, full breakdown of the entire slate, including all the marquee games, some trash, will be out later tonight. Big Bets on Campus, wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks to Colin for joining me. Thanks to our producers on the back end. Most importantly, thanks to all of you for tuning in. Good luck on all of your wagers. We'll see you, by the way, live show 10:30 a.m. Eastern right here on this channel. Cheers.